She was just a lowly cleaner, but she had her eye on her employer's high-end gown. The luxurious fabric gave off a soft, enchanting sheen, like twinkling stars in the night sky. But when her employer revealed that the gown cost as much as £500, Harris's eyes filled with disbelief. For someone with such meager earnings, that price was an impossibly distant, astronomical figure. Yet Harris didn't give up. Instead, she planted a seed of a dream in her heart. She was determined to have a gown. From then on, Harris began her journey of saving money. While others took the bus to work, she chose to walk. While others enjoyed the warmth of the lights at home, she had already removed her fuse box. Just to save a few meager coins, she rushed from place to place, taking on one cleaning job after another. And in her spare time, she mended clothes for people, penny by penny building the seemingly distant dream fund. One evening, full of hope, she filled in some numbers on a lottery ticket. To her surprise, the next day brought her a thrill. Though the prize was only £150, it was still a big step closer to her dream. When her friend found out, she was overjoyed too. But life is always full of ups and downs. Due to the economic downturn, her employer, Mrs. Dant, not only cut her working hours, but also owed her wages. This left Harris feeling utterly dejected. Seeing how low her spirits were, her friend dragged her along to the dog track for some excitement. At first, Harris didn't plan to place a bet, until she saw that the name of Greyhound number 6 was Haute Couture. Harris felt sure this was a sign from above, that fate was calling out to her, so she bet her entire savings. The ticket seller, Archie, tried to persuade Harris not to be impulsive, hinting that this dog had no chance of winning, but Harris held firm to her decision. Archie had no choice but to take her money. When the race started, number 6 ran fast from the beginning. Harris cheered excitedly, as if seeing the moment her dream would come true. But just before the finish line, number 6 suddenly stopped. All her hopes were dashed in an instant. Harris stared at the track, utterly dispirited. £100 had gone down the drain. Harris sank onto the stool in disappointment, unable to collect herself for a long time. However, just when Harris thought she would never get the gown, luck came knocking one after another. One day on her way home, she suddenly noticed a glint of light reflecting from a puddle. She picked it up and saw it was an expensive diamond ring. If she sold it, she would have enough money to buy the gown. But Harris didn't hesitate for a moment and turned the ring in at the police station. And what happened next proved that good deeds bring good rewards. A few days later, the army sent a representative to give her the back pay of the pension owed, since her husband died in the line of duty years ago. The police also sent word that the owner of the diamond ring had been found, and left a sum of money as a reward for her honesty. Archie also came to see her. He was sorry he couldn't stop her from losing her £100, but he had secretly kept back £10, and with it he had won back over £100 for her. Harris could hardly believe it. In less than a day, she had exceeded her goal. Harris decided to fulfill her dream immediately. It was her first time on an airplane, and her heart was full of nervousness and anticipation. Gazing at the bustling city of Paris outside the window, she imagined herself wearing the gown, and broke into a happy smile. After arriving in Paris, to save money, Harris spent the night on a bench at the station. Early the next morning, guided by a kind passerby, she made her way smoothly to the headquarters of Dior. But just as she was about to enter, a model suddenly fell to the ground. Harris quickly helped the girl up, but the girl seemed to be in a hurry and left her backpack behind. Harris chased after her up the stairs, and finally returned the backpack to its owner. Little did she know just how much the small act of kindness would help her. Then Harris walked into the reception area. The elegantly dressed female manager noticed her shabby clothing, a flicker of disdain in her eyes. She secretly pressed a security button, tricked Harris into waiting aside, and then busied herself attending to the aristocrats who arrived. Seeing this, Harris grew anxious. She had clearly been there first, so why were these people being let in ahead of her? She stopped the manager to demand an explanation, but the woman ignored her completely. Believing that Harris lowered the store's standards, she contemptuously ordered a clerk to escort Harris out, but Harris refused to leave. She had worked hard every day and saved up to come all the way to Paris just to buy the gown.
A Christian Dior gown is not for pennies. Faites-la sortir une maintenant. Bien.
Harris was utterly furious. She pulled out rolls of neatly bundled banknotes from her bag and laid them on the counter. Even though the money was enough to buy the dress, the female manager still tried to stop her, saying that today was the 10th anniversary fashion show, and she couldn't let a cleaner in. It would ruin Dior's reputation. A marquis nearby had had enough. He gallantly invited Harris to be his guest and attend the fashion show together. He even thoughtfully helped Harris put her money away, and escorted her calmly into the venue. Seeing this, the manager could only force an awkward smile. Backstage, chaos erupted. Everyone was talking about how a cleaner had spent her entire life savings on a dress, and was being personally escorted by the marquis. One by one, they peeked out from behind the curtains at this courageous older woman. The marquis told her that if she saw a dress she liked, she only needed to write down its number in the booklet, and after the show she could buy it. Just then, the wealthy lady from earlier walked in. Seeing that her seat was next to Harris's, she immediately made a face of disgust. But with the marquis present, the lady reluctantly sat down and deliberately covered her nose and mouth with a scarf. However, Harris paid it no mind. When the show officially began, models dazzled the audience in luxurious luxurious gowns. A dizzying array of dresses appeared before her eyes. Harris was deeply captivated by the sight. She spotted an elegant green dress, felt a stir in her heart, and wrote down its number in her booklet. But when the grand finale red dress appeared, Harris was completely won over. The color of that dress was radiant, like a blazing flame. She immediately changed her mind and decided to buy the red dress. However, when she went to find the female manager with her number card, the wealthy lady snatched it away. She looked down on this cleaner from the bottom of society. And to make matters worse, the dress was an exclusive design, only one of its kind in the world. The clerk could only suggest that Harris choose another style. Not wanting to have come all this way for nothing, Harris settled for her second choice, the green dress she had noticed earlier. She told the clerk to pack it up quickly, because she had to catch a flight. But how could Harris know that haute couture dresses must be custom tailored? So she had to stay in Paris for about 2 weeks, during which she would need multiple fittings to achieve the perfect fit. However, Harris had spent all her money on the dress, and the remaining funds were nowhere near enough to live in Paris for 2 weeks. The female manager took the chance to kick her while she was down, advising Harris not to buy it after all. Just then, the model Natasha, whom Harris had helped, said she could speak with the designer about shortening the production time by a week. The accountant, Andre, also said he had an extra room at home, where Harris could stay temporarily. Before the manager could object, the clerk quickly led Harris into the workroom. After hearing her story, the staff all applauded to welcome her. It was the first time Harris had received such treatment. Afterward, Natasha was already waiting at the door. She was more than happy to be Harris's temporary chauffeur. Along the way, she deliberately passed by the most characteristic Parisian landmarks, showing Harris the beautiful scenery. Together they arrived at Andre's place. Faced with the messy state of the room, Harris instinctively started tidying up. When Andre returned with groceries, he thought he had walked into the wrong house. As night fell, Harris looked at Paris just within reach, and could hardly believe she had truly realized her dream. In the following days, Harris continued coming to the atelier for fittings, but she unexpectedly learned that the house of Dior was on the verge of collapse, because the picky wealthy ladies were never satisfied with their custom dresses, and kept finding excuses to delay payment. The company couldn't even afford to pay its employees. Harris was saddened by this. That day, she happened to run into the Marquis again. Learning that Harris would be staying in Paris for another week, the Marquis warmly invited her to visit. Together they strolled through a flower market and attended a dance. The wonderful experiences made Harris feel as if she were in heaven, but alcohol proved to be her undoing. When Harris woke up, she realized she had missed her fitting appointment. She immediately took a taxi to the boutique, only to run into a workers' strike and protest march. The roads were completely blocked. Harris had no choice but to get out and run to the boutique on foot. By the time she arrived in a panic, the designer was already clearly angry. Even though Harris kept apologizing, the designer felt she had disrespected him and refused to serve her. And the manager, who had never liked Harris, seized the opportunity to cancel her order. No matter how humbly Harris pleaded, she couldn't change the outcome. The clerk nearby couldn't bear to see it, and thus invited Harris to tour their workroom instead. Everyone there was meticulously completing their own steps, but in Harris's heart, their hands were weaving beautiful dreams. When she saw the nearly finished number 89 red dress again, at that moment she finally understood the true meaning of custom couture.
It's not sewing. It's making moonlight. I've gone to heaven.
Her sincere admiration drew soft laughter from everyone, and then Harris's own skilled sewing abilities won the affection of all. The clerks jointly proposed taking her measurements again. The female manager, however, scowled and dragged Harris into her office, demanding to know what she was really up to. In her decades in the industry, she had never seen a cleaner come to order a couture gown. Those wealthy ladies ordered couture to shine at social events. What about her, with such persistence? Was she planning to wear a couture gown to sweep the streets? Harris stammered that it was her dream, but the manager pressed on relentlessly. Just then, Natasha walked in carrying a bouquet of flowers. Upon learning that the flowers were from the Marquis, the manager's attitude did a complete 180-degree turn. Harris's dress was allowed to continue, but when she arrived at the boutique the next day, she saw the workers walking out, dejected. The Dior company was facing a bankruptcy crisis, and could no longer afford to pay its staff. Harris was indignant. She led the workers back to demand an explanation from the manager. Seeing that the manager didn't take her seriously at all, Harris turned and headed straight for Monsieur Dior's office, calling for all the workers to come with her. Andre tried to stop her, but Harris, having gotten to know him during this time, she knew that he fully understood the company's fatal problem, but just never been given the chance to prove his worth. So she stressed that this was Andre's chance to prove himself. Then she pushed him into the president's office. Harris hoped that Monsieur Dior would give Andre 10 minutes. Perhaps this young man could save the struggling house of Dior. Seeing this, Andre had no choice but to put forward a revolutionary proposal. He suggested breaking away from the traditional luxury positioning and launching a diffusion line, making the brand accessible to a broader market. After hearing him out, Monsieur Dior decided to give him some time to make his case, so he asked everyone to leave the office. Not long after, Andre stepped out and announced that Monsieur Dior had adopted his idea. This meant that not only would the company not lay anyone off, it might even need more employees. Everyone was overjoyed. Only the manager realized that it was time for her to leave. But in the evening, Harris actively sought her out and asked her to return to her post. By then, the manager had lost her usual arrogance, seeing that Harris wasn't kicking her while she was down, but instead acknowledged her contributions to the company, and encouraged her to set aside her prejudices.
More needed. Now more than ever. Who else is going to keep things up to scratch? Not Andre or Monsieur Dior. What would two men know about that?
Harris's sincerity moved the manager deeply. The boutique returned to normal operation, and at last, Harris received the dress of her dreams and returned to London, satisfied with the gown. That evening, one of her employers came to her door uninvited, sobbing about a problem she had. She had to attend a very important dinner party, but because Harris had been absent from London, no one had taken care of her clothes. The only decent dress she owned was now old and worn. In the end, kind-hearted Harris reluctantly lent her couture gown to her. The next morning, Harris went to that employer's house to work and pick up the dress, but when she got ready to clean, she found her dress carelessly thrown on the sofa, covered in burn marks, and more insultingly, £10 had been left nearby as compensation. After reading the note left by her employer, Harris nearly fainted from anger. It turned out that the night before, while touching up her makeup, her employer had stood too close to the fireplace, and the dress had accidentally caught fire. But she felt not a trace of remorse. Instead, she wore the damaged dress, striking poses for the cameras. Harris went home with the damaged dress. This was not just a dress, it was the embodiment of all her hopes and dreams. But now, before she'd even had a chance to wear it and show it off, she had watched helplessly as it was maliciously destroyed. In the end, she threw the dress from a bridge into the river, bidding a final farewell to her dream. Afterward, Harris resumed her old routine. It was only that when she saw her employer Mrs. Dan's gown, her eyes no longer held their former sparkle. Mrs. Dan had also seen the news report about the Dior dress being burned, and dismissed the girl's action as a mere publicity stunt. Hearing this pierced Harris's heart once more. In a fit of anger, she quit on the spot and demanded all back pay be settled at once.
You can't leave me.
Them days are over when you can treat people like scum and expect loyalty in return.
One evening, Harris received a huge package and a large bouquet of roses. When she tore off the wrapping paper, she realized they had been sent by Dior. Inside was also a letter. It turned out that the news of the burned dress had caused Dior's dresses to sell like hotcakes. They were moved by Harris's kindness and sincerely sorry for what she had been through. And as it happened, the wealthy lady who had been at odds with Harris had been arrested because her husband was suspected of embezzling a large sum of company funds. She could no longer afford to pay for her dress, so Dior had altered the red gown to fit Harris and sent it to her as a token of their gratitude. The bouquet of roses came with the Marquis's blessings. Perhaps it was all meant to be. This feeling of losing something and then getting it back thrilled Harris beyond words. At a veterans ball carefully organized by the government, Harris made a stunning appearance in the red gown, walking with confident steps into the center of the dance floor. She might no longer be young, but true beauty is not limited by age or social status, and true elegance never depends on external things. It comes from the clarity within.